List of significant documents. Summarize the ideas in those documents, and then connect those documents to the U.S. Constitution. Set a timer for 15 minutes.
Setting. Okay, 15 minutes and counting.
So just basic ideas of learning. I know that you can't really do anything, but typically if you're in a traditional class, don't just listen to the teacher go blah, 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 blah. You need to start associating what I say, asking questions, thinking about what I'm saying. Don't just sit there silently. Every time someone says something, try to connect it. Make some sort of connection with something. I can't just pour knowledge into your brain. That's not how it works. You need to be able to ask questions. Okay, again. Oh, yeah, that reminds me of, this is like when you talk about that idea, I remember, or rule of law, I know of a time where rule of law didn't happen, or limited government. I remember when the government was doing whatever they wanted. However you want to do, how this is like something or dislike it, that's how you will create learning. That's how it works. I'm putting the ingredients, I'm giving you the recipe. You still got to bake the cake. I can't just tell you the way it is, and you got to start working with it. You got to make it happen. Fundamental political principles written in the documents end up in the Constitution. We've talked about the principles. We'll talk quickly about them once again. How many times are we going to go over this? Until you know them, until you love them, until you live them. Consent of the government. People are the source of power. Limited government. The government cannot do everything it wants. Its power is limited. Democracy. People rule through voting. But also remember, another characteristic of democracy is, do you remember the other two characteristics of the three? We believe in equality. If you want to be a true democracy, you also must protect individual rights. There are individual rights of people in a democracy. Rule of law, no one is above the law, or the rule is we all must follow the law. That means no one's above the law. And then last, representative government, just a way to make democracy function. The principles were written in the documents. The documents were basically robbed, plagiarized, or summarized in the U.S. Constitution. 2 of them are English. 3 of them are American. We talked about the Magna Carta yesterday. What were the ideas? What were the principles? Which were the fundamental political principles of the basic government ideas? Which of them were in the Magna Carta? Rule of law was written in the Magna Carta in the year 1215. That's 1215. This year is 2019. Or 2020, depending on when you're watching, or 2021, depending on when you're watching it. I'm recording in 2019. That's 800 years later, and we still believe in rule of law. We still believe you should have the right to trial, and we still believe, we believe more than the rich should have rights, but this is the starting point. Eventually, the middle class gets rights. Eventually, the poor gets rights. Eventually, everyone has rights. English Bill of Rights. Kind of going out of order chronologically. Let's go over them in terms of country of origin. England will create the English Bill of Rights. What ideas are in there? Oh my Lord, there's a lot of Bill of Rights. A lot of rights here. A lot of fundamental political principles in this English Bill of Rights. The idea of separation of powers, separating the government into different branches. We do that today because we stole it from the English. The government's power shall be limited. We do that today in our Constitution because we stole it from the English. Elections, stole it from the English. Freedom of speech, stole it from the English. Can't torture people. We do that today. Well, we don't do that today. Can't torture you. What is this then? This is not torture. I'm watching social studies video. I thought the 8th Amendment protected me from freedom of torture. If you think this is torture, then you don't know what torture is. Watch some science and math videos. That's torture. Oh, sick burns on the math and science teachers. And you have the right to bear arms. No, that does not mean bears can have arms. That means you can bear or carry arms. My arms can carry my arms. When we say arms, we mean weapons, folks. So again, separation of power. There's a king, but there was also branches of government. They limit the government's power. We have elections, freedom of speech, no torture, and the right to bear arms. Then we also talked about the Charter of the Virginia Company. Is this all review? Yeah, we're going to do some review first. Get used to it because there's a lot of ideas that we have gone over. There are many documents that we have gone over. And the only way that you're going to remember them is if we go over them and over them and over them. Sometimes you got to suspend the right of your freedom from torture. We're going to torture you a little bit, but it's for your own good. Charter of Virginia Company of London. what fundamental political principle was in here? Well, it talks about the rights of Englishmen, or basic individual rights, which we have in the Constitution, and then representative government. The idea of representative government is written in the Charter of the Virginia Company of London. All of these bullet points, they end up in the U.S. Constitution. The ideas go in the documents. Now we're going to talk about the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence has some of the fundamental political principles that will later end up in the U.S. Constitution. Or you could actually draw the arrow, the ideas go into the Declaration of Independence, and we steal it, however you want to do it. Either way, this document has the ideas that are also in the U.S. Constitution that explain our government. Well, let's go into a little bit more detail, but obviously the Declaration of Independence will influence the U.S. Constitution. So we've got to do a little bit of a history lesson here for you. The year is 1776. The king owns the colonies. There's rising tension between the king and the colonies. We are not America. We are the American colonies, which are owned and ruled by the king. We're not getting along whatsoever. We are very upset. Look Who's Talking 2, I think is what that's from. Don't watch the movie. You'll be greatly disappointed. Look Who's Talking 1. Actually, the two Look Who's Talking movies, not that bad. Now, again, I haven't watched those movies in 20 years, so they could be absolutely terrible. The year 1776. We don't like the king. We decide we should team up against the king. Now, the key here is there really isn't even a we. New York has no relationship whatsoever with Virginia. Virginia has no relationship whatsoever with Pennsylvania. If you really want to understand the mentality and what America was, it's a lot like Europe. Imagine Germany and England and France and Italy, all the different countries in Europe where they speak different languages, they have different beliefs, different governments. That's sort of, it's a little bit of a stretch, but what America was. It's not like it was today. We were not United States. We were not the United States. We were just colonies. We were loosely connected, if that. The only thing we had in common is we're all in North America. We're all on the East Coast. The people did not get along. Sure, they had a similar language. They had some similar beliefs. The one thing that they did share was that they were ruled by the king, and they did not like it all that much. And they decided we should start our own country, 13 united colonies, because that's what's going to take it if you want to be able to defeat the king. These 13 different, basically, countries need to come together if they're going to defeat the strongest nation on earth. And it all starts with Thomas Jefferson writing the Declaration, or to declare or to state something. And what is he stating? What is he declaring? He's saying we are going to be independent. We are breaking free from the king. July 4th, 1776, we celebrate this holiday every year. It's called Independence Day. That is when it is formally announced. And we will start the American Revolution and our battle for independence. Our war against the king will start with this document that says we are no longer with you. And the king is going to say, no, you're going to still be with us. Just because you wrote a document that says you are declaring your independence, that doesn't mean you're independent. You're still with me. And we have to have a battle to prove, or a war to determine our independence. I put a lot of work into these PowerPoints. I hope you appreciate these things. That's Star Wars. I have a feeling that some people watching the video, what is that? Is that, oh yeah, it's Star Wars. You should know. They're making a new Star Wars. Anyway, so Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, our founding fathers, get together. They think about what should we put in this document to talk to the king about. This is the Declaration of Independence. Why are we studying this? Remember, this document heavily influences the beliefs that we have today in America, and it heavily influences the United States Constitution, which explains our government today. All right, I'm not going to read the whole Declaration of Independence to you. It's not really that long. It's not that difficult to understand, but being a nice guy, I'm going to break it down into 4 really easy to digest points. The first major point of this document is that it declares our independence from England. It says we're done. We're breaking up. A lot of times you'll have an American history teacher that will make an analogy of the Declaration of Independence to a breakup letter. So we are breaking up from the king. We're starting our own country. Point number 2, Thomas Jefferson will say that all men are created equal. We're leaving the king because we are not being treated equal. English citizens have more rights. The king has more rights. We believe that in a country, in a nation, all men should be created equal. So we're going to start our own nation where all people are created equal. Spare me. I know you've got questions, but wait a second. Didn't Thomas Jefferson own slaves? That's a conversation for another day. All you need to know is the fundamental political principle, the idea of equality, was written in the Declaration of Independence, and that idea will exist in the Constitution, and at the very least, that idea exists today. We all are equal under the law. Sounds like rule of law. We all are equal under the law. Next idea in the Constitution, unalienable rights. There it is again, the idea of rights, individual rights, which is a part of a democracy, which is one of the fundamental political principles, which is in all the documents, which is written in our Constitution and a part of our government. Unalienable rights. Actually, we steal this from Jefferson, who steals this from John Locke. John Locke is the guy, he's an English guy actually, so that's kind of weird. Wait, we're taking an idea from an Englishman to declare freedom from England. But he says that we are all born with unalienable rights. These rights are not given to us by governments. God gave us these rights. Everyone has them. And if it's God's rights that he gave us, only God can take them away. Governments do not create these rights. Governments cannot take them away. The only thing that the government should do is protect these rights. That's why John Locke says we create governments. We create governments to protect our unalienable rights from other governments and to protect them from citizens who may want to take our rights away. It's the only reason you create a government. And the unalienable rights that John Locke wrote about, that Thomas Jefferson will steal, that then we'll steal again in the Constitution, is you have the right to life. No one can take away your right to live. The government will protect that. That's why we have police. The government will protect your right to liberty. Remember, again, the idea of liberty is a negative liberty in that you are free from outside interference. You're free from coercion. You're free from government restriction. You want to buy a farm. You want to be a farmer. You want to write books. You want to write songs and sing along and have fun and party every day. The government's going to leave you alone as long as you don't interfere with anyone else. And then last, John Locke says you have the right to own property. You want to own a house, that's your house. No one can take that house from you. You want to own a car, that's your car, and the government will protect that right to own stuff. Thomas Jefferson will change that and say, I don't really like the way that property thing says. And he'll say, you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what's written in the Declaration of Independence. All right, pursuit of happiness sounds better. Pursuit of happiness means you can own stuff, but it means more than just owning stuff. If stuff makes you happy, if your 55-inch color flat screen HD 4K TV makes you happy, then cool. That is your pursuit of happiness, and you have the right to it. And no one can take that away. And then the last part of the Declaration of Independence are grievances. Grievance is a fancy word for a complaint. Basically, the complaints are all the reasons why we're breaking up with the king. I think it's 27, I have to look, but basically he writes every single reason why we have the right and the rational, logical reason to start our own country. Dear King, you are a tyrant. Here's some examples. I'm not going to put them all in here, but he's a tyrant. He took away our right to trial by jury. He unfairly taxed us. He removed our representative government. He had a standing army in the colonies during peacetime. Like, why are there armies hanging out in the streets? We're not at war. So these are all the complaints. These are all the grievances. Blah, 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 blah. 27. Yes, I remembered exactly right. You're supposed to. You're the teacher. Here's another example. Basically a breakup letter. Dear boyfriend or girlfriend, I'm breaking up with you because your breath stinks, you smell, your jokes aren't funny, you're immature, you never stood up for me, you think you're more important, your friends are better looking. That's usually the reason. They usually dump you because they're going to go out with your friends. Some friends, right? What are you going to do? But some of these make sense. So if you look at this, now obviously the king's breath didn't stink. Well, it might have. And he might have smelled. Probably not. If anyone didn't smell, it was probably the king. But this makes sense. Like, he didn't stand up for me. That's right. The king didn't stand up for the colonies. He thought he was more important. He thought he was more equal. He had more rights. That one makes sense, right? We should all be treated equally. There's it. That's the 4 parts right there. Actually, all 4 of the parts, I actually kind of wrote them in there, right? Equality, not standing up for me would be an example of representative government. Yeah, something like that. Breaking up. There it is. There it is. Boom. Pow. Awesome. Almost to the end. Again, fundamental political principles in the documents. We'll talk about the Articles of Confederation in the next video. So I did Declaration of Independence. You will have to wait one more video on documents, and then we're all done with the documents. Fundamental political principles, significant documents, and then the big document, the Constitution, our government, which we will spend an entire unit on the Constitution.